Welcome to Good for Bitcoin, a weekly show recorded live every Friday where we recap the top events of the week and talk about everything that is good for Bitcoin. If it's built on Bitcoin, then it's good for Bitcoin. Let's get started.
Content shared on this podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. It does not constitute financial, investment, or legal advice. The views and opinions expressed are those of the host and guests and do not reflect the official policy or position of any other agency, organization, or company. We encourage you to conduct your own research and consult with a qualified professional before making any financial decisions.
Hello, Bitcoiners. Welcome to Good for Bitcoin, a weekly show we do every Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern, where we recap the events of the week, talk about everything that is good for Bitcoin. If it's built on Bitcoin, then it's good for Bitcoin. I'm Brandon, social media manager here at Trust Machines and Leather. We also have Longstreet here, who is behind the Leather account right now. Longstreet, happy Friday, sir.
Happy Friday, Brandon. How are you?
I'm doing all right. You know, it's been kind of a weird week. I feel like sentiment has been very down and very up and very in between this week. And yeah, it's been just kind of a weird one.
It's been so volatile. Like, we've just kind of become complacent in this summer doldrums, not a lot of crazy price action. And then this week just whipsawed us, that the leverage just kind of builds up and then gets cleared. And it's kind of crazy that, we saw as far as price action, we saw that crazy dip down to sub 50 and now we're back at 60. that was a lot to ride.
Yeah, crazy for just in a week time to have a $10,000 swing in the price is pretty wild. I was looking at the fear and greed index, and it seemed like we kind of peaked at a very low yesterday of 20. Right now we're kind of in the neutral range. I'm looking here at about like 48 or so. So it seems like the market has sentiment wise at least recovered a little bit. But quite a range, between extreme fear, which we were seeing yesterday in the market, and just neutral today.
Yeah, I don't know about you, but the first cycle I was around Bitcoin, obviously, like any price movement above 5% is like, oh my gosh, what's happening right now? And now, after just going through like the last bear market, it's like, wow, that's interesting. Cool. I wonder if I should buy more, or wow, that's really high. That's great. Like, I think anyone who's been around for a year or two becomes a little bit like desensitized to the volatility.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely feel like I'm in that camp. I mean, I was seeing the price go up and down, and it doesn't really change anything, right? Like, the long-term fundamentals of Bitcoin didn't change. We're still here. We're still building. I'm still seeing a bunch of people in the timeline, continuing to build, right? And like fundamentals haven't changed at all. And there still was a lot of good news that came out of this week as well that we'll, get into. I guess to start, we can talk about the Leather Lounge that you hosted yesterday, which was about a big update or proposed update to Stacks, the SIP 27, which is around multi-sig. Maybe you could kind of tee that up and talk about what that SIP actually is, and we can talk a little bit more about the SIP process in general.
Yeah, sure. So yesterday's show was fascinating because we had the SIP's author, Vlad, on to talk about it. And we were also joined by Hero Gamer and Good Kitty. And so SIP stands for Stacks Improvement Protocol, proposal. And basically, anytime anyone from the community sees an opportunity to improve the Stacks ecosystem, the Stacks blockchain, they can propose the improvement. And there's a lot of like back and forth that goes on between just everyone in the community. There are weekly SIP calls so people can voice their ideas and opinions, get feedback on them. Ultimately, a SIP gets created, and then the community can vote on that. So this is the 27th SIP. This is SIP 027. And this was created by Vlad, who is also the creator of Asina. And this is to fix the issue of the orders of a multi-sig signature. So if you have a situation where you need like 3 of 5 people to sign a multi-sig transaction, the way it works right now in Stacks is it has to be sequential. So if the second person in the sequence signs, the first person cannot. Then if the fourth person signs, then the third person cannot. So to work around this sequential mandate that was pre-existing on Stacks as it is now, Vlad created the platform Asina to help just create a better user experience. One thing that we talked about on yesterday's show is that Bitcoin is global. It's 24/7. There are companies, DAOs, organizations that are all over the world. So to have that extra layer, that necessity of like getting people to sign in order is a little bit like it's a friction point. It's a point of friction. So he created Asina to like put a band-aid on it to make a short fix, but he's been talking with the community and designing this SIP for at least a year, almost a year and a half. So it just that's one thing that we discovered yesterday was more about the SIP process, how these ideas are formed, and how long it can take. So yeah, this one will make the UX much easier so that if you need like 3 of 5 signers, for example, they can sign in any order.
Yeah, that was actually a limitation that I wasn't aware of. I know, Asina has been around for some time now. I remember when we first sort of announced the integration that Leather had with it, and that must have been last year, if I'm not too mistaken. But yeah, really great, resource, really great UI. They integrate both ordinals, on the Bitcoin side as well as Stacks. So it's really great, to be able to, and it's still, non-custodial, right? So it's just really, really amazing resource for the community. But I didn't know about this limitation that Stacks specifically had, that you must sign in the correct order, otherwise, it doesn't really work. So really cool, that some progress is being made there to make that user experience better. And yeah, especially what you mentioned with people across multiple time zones and different countries and continents even. Yeah, definitely a needed and welcome update. Um, but yeah, it's pretty cool that we do have this SIP process in general, kind of similar to the BIP process that's on Bitcoin. Through all the different BIPs that are out there. I think the biggest one that everyone is talking about, that people want to see get approved is OpCat. That has well, technically it has a different number, but they kind of memed it into it being BIP 420. But I don't think it's technically 420. I think it's another number.
Yeah,
But
bit.
yeah, but yeah, that's how a lot of decentralized networks do updates, right? Proposals are submitted, people can approve or deny these proposals, and Stacks works in a very similar way. And the voting is live for this SIP. Other SIPs in the past that have been approved, you talked about it yesterday. One is obviously just Stacks NFTs in general through SIP 9. That's of course a really big one, from our perspective, being able to have Stacks NFTs. SIP 10 as well as basically enables meme coins on Stacks. So without SIP 10, we wouldn't have Welsh or Wrapped Nothing or any of those tokens. So a lot of really big things have come from SIPs, and I'm sure we'll see more. I wonder if there's anybody that is sort of waiting to propose certain things post Nakamoto, which we'll kind of get into some of the news there as well. But yeah, it's a very, very important process overall to have this kind of SIP procedure in place on the network.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And I was kind of surprised to learn that it can take so long to really it's like passing a Senate bill, right? Like there's so much work that goes into just proposing the SIP. So yeah, next steps. Let's see. It ends on is it the 15th? 15th or 16th, it'll end. And then after that, that basically gives the green light, like assuming the 80% consensus threshold is met. It's likely that it will. Assuming that it is met, that'll give the green light to the stackers and the programmers to put that through. And then it'll be a part of the Nakamoto upgrade, which is very close coming up too. That was another big update this week.
It is very close, yeah. And yeah, I mean, just I guess just one thing that I wanted to mention is, sometimes you'll hear kind of detractors of the Stacks network talk about, why does Stacks even need its own token, right?
Yeah.
You'll hear kind of Bitcoin maxis complain about that, and this is a prime reason for why that is, because by voting, you're essentially sending Stacks to an address, that is kind of your yes or no vote. So it enables that decentralized aspect of being able to vote for these types of proposals in a very decentralized way. So that's just an important, and obviously proof of transfer, with stacking stacks and everything like that is another really big aspect. But just in terms of being able to trustlessly vote for proposals, I think is something worth mentioning.
Absolutely, yeah. The more I've learned about Stacks, the more elegant I find that it is, and it's really thoughtful. And in doing research for this week, I was reading over a lot of the previous SIPs, which is fascinating. And I think if anyone who is interested in Stacks at all, part of the education process really should be reading these previous SIPs, because it's such a journey of the evolution of what Stacks has become now. It started on such a great principle, but now, as people use it, for example, Vlad was realizing that, okay, there's an issue, there's a point of friction when it comes to multisig. I'm going to create a band-aid for it. Let's do a SIP. When people use it, they find little bugs, and, the chain needs to evolve as the demand evolves. So yeah, it's a pretty beautiful process. Yesterday's show was great. I learned so much.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point that you make with just going back to review, the previous SIPs to kind of review some of the history of the network. I think a lot of that translates back to Bitcoin as well, with going back and reviewing a lot of the BIPs. I think it was actually Casey Rodamore in an interview I was watching with him. He was talking about, when ordinals came out, a lot of people were talking about just the fact that, this was sort of an unintended consequence, right,
Mhm.
of Taproot, and who could have seen this coming, and all that stuff. And if you go back and look at the Taproot BIP in the proposal, it very, very plainly talks about the fact that the the script, the size limit on scripts is basically being removed, and it's pretty clear that that these limits are being sort of removed to allow these larger scripts to be put on the network. And of course, with that comes the ability to put arbitrary data on the network. So in hindsight, maybe it's a little more clear that it was obviously going to happen. But if you read the BIP, I think it would be pretty clear, that this was a potential possibility with Taproot.
And that highlights the necessity, the importance of everyone being informed and voting, because for any of the Bitcoin maxis that are really, upset about the perversion, I say with air quotes, of the Bitcoin chain, making it more than just a monetary asset. If they were really worried about it, anyone who is that passionate about what Bitcoin is going to read and become knowledgeable about any of these BIPs. So yeah, it's possible that maybe some people missed it. I'm curious what the voting was on that. That was another discussion we had yesterday. Is on like the should we see how the votes are tallying currently, or should it be hidden? And Hero was making the really good point that it's better to have the votes hidden for a couple main reasons. One, like, you want people to think for themselves and do the research and vote the way they feel it should. And two, you don't want to have people look and see like, oh, it's at 99%. Like, I don't need to vote for this. So best to keep it hidden until it's the voting has ended.
Yeah, that's an interesting aspect, and yeah, it's like you don't want to just be following the crowd, right? In terms of how you're voting. So yeah, it's cool that it's sort of hidden and then revealed post deadline, I guess, for those people that are voting.
Yeah, the only thing I'll close with on that is if anyone listening is involved in stacks or wants to be, you can go to stx.eco, and voting is super simple, super clear. Um, and in yesterday's show, we had, oh, maybe there's another good thing to talk about, which is Good Kitty's creativity contest. But there's a lot of links out there education wise if you are curious about the SIP so that you can make an informed decision when voting. But yes, you can go to stx.eco. So yeah, real quickly, if you don't mind, I'll shout out Good Kitty because in an ecosystem, there's we've been talking about like the value of the SIPs and the importance of voting, but like meme culture and creativity and art is also such a fundamental part of this ecosystem. Like you can't separate it. Good Kitty and Hero have come up with this amazing idea for this creativity contest. So anyone who is inspired by SIP 27 in any way can flex their creativity and make something. There's no pressure. It can be quote unquote good or bad. But the idea is make something inspired by this SIP, submit it. There's a nice little a goodie bag of prizes for some of the winners. So I thought that was such a valuable contribution to the whole ecosystem, really.
Yeah, definitely. Shout out to Good Kitty. We've had her on Leather Lounge, I think, a few times now, and obviously just such an OG in the space. So really cool initiative from her. But yeah, I guess on the topic of stacks, we can kind of move on to what is most likely the biggest news of the week, which is what many many folks in the space have been very eagerly anticipating, which is when Nakamoto, when Nakamoto is the question, and we kind of have an answer now officially. So no more delays. Nakamoto is coming. It is coming at the end of this month, and essentially how the sort of timeline works is um, the final code is going to be delivered to the signers and the node operators and everybody on the 28th of this month of August. And then there's going to be sort of a 2 week activation period between cycle 92 and 93. So how it works is it can't immediately launch, especially in the middle of a stacking cycle. It needs to sort of launch at the start of a new stacking cycle. So
Hmm.
basically they'll have kind of, and a stacking cycle kind of takes around 2 weeks. So between cycle 92 and 93, that'll allow everybody to download the code, get ready, for launch, and then essentially, uh, I'm not sure what the mechanism is exactly, but they then have to sort of agree on what Bitcoin block the actual activation will happen. So that decision will essentially get made and get locked in at the start of cycle 93, and then from there it shouldn't be that much longer. So it's not a delay. It's just it takes just a couple weeks or maybe 3 weeks or so to just implement this again across a fully decentralized
Yeah.
network. So there's just a little bit of coordination that's required from everybody in order to, get everybody to agree on when to actually turn it on for Nakamoto, because it's a hard fork, not a soft fork. So yeah, it's a kind of a bigger process, but that will happen very soon. And with Nakamoto, we're going to see things like fast blocks. Stacks blocks are going to be reduced from 10 minutes, around 10 minutes that are synced with Bitcoin, down to just a few seconds, 5 to 10 seconds per stacks block. And then every time a new Bitcoin block does happen, the stacks network will sort of settle back to Bitcoin. And that's how it's sort of retaining that Bitcoin finality on every Bitcoin block. And from a user perspective, that's probably the biggest thing. But there's of course many other updates that Nakamoto is bringing. But it's really, it's definitely the biggest upgrade to the Stacks network that the Stacks network has ever had. I would maybe argue that it's the biggest upgrade to any L2 on Bitcoin. I don't know if Lightning, if you compare like to Lightning, if they've had a similar this big, of an update, because it really changes everything, from payments. Essentially, making a payment on Stacks is going to be almost just as fast as making a payment on Lightning, without having to deal with channels and opening and closing channels and all the just BS that comes with Lightning, that we've talked about on this show. Of course, there's many good uses for Lightning, but there's also some pain points there. Um, but DeFi as well. I don't think the clip has gone out yet, but one of our GMs, Blaze, was speaking at Bitcoin Builders, and all the videos are now up on the Bitcoin Builders website or YouTube channel. And he was talking about the fact that with 10-minute block times, when it comes to DeFi, it really causes a lot of issues. For one, there can be pretty big price swings within a 10-minute time window. So if you're making, a if you're trying to buy something, it's really hard to know whether that buy is going to be profitable or not. If you're kind of a higher volume trader. And with those larger swings, you'll even see it right now if you go to any of these DeFi platforms, or even if you swap within Lether, you'll see that the slippage is set to like 3 or 4%,
Yeah.
which compared to other networks like Ethereum is it's gigantic. Like Ethereum, I think he mentioned was like a 0.1% slippage is like kind of the norm on Ethereum. So for anybody that's doing any sort of high velocity trading on Stacks, it's basically impossible to do that, just because you have so much slippage in between Bitcoin blocks that it's just really very difficult. So that's sort of a really Nakamoto's going to make things easier just for the average person that's maybe just trying to send some stacks around, or send some meme coins around, or hopefully stable coins, more stable coin activity in the future. But it's just going to enable more activity on the network in general, because it's going to make it a lot easier and a lot less friction to do a lot of these DeFi actions that people are doing on other chains.
Yeah, it's going to be a massive unlock, and it's not like once Nakamoto happens, people are going to start building on the L2. People have been building for years, 1, 2, or 3 years, the products that are Nakamoto dependent. So, man, the flood at the end of the month, early September, the floodgates are going to open. We're going to be pretty busy in our shows, like highlighting all the platforms and products available, especially with the unlock of SBTC. And that's 4 weeks after the hard fork, right? We're going to get SBTC.
Yeah, that's right. So yeah, SBTC is still on track. And kind of the reason that there's going to be a delay, I think it was Manib that talked about this when he sort of tweeted out the announcement, was they just want, post Nakamoto. They want to have Nakamoto be out and available and go through a couple of cycles, a couple of those 2 week cycles, in order to just make sure that everything is stable, before they then roll out something like SBTC. So it's just a little bit of a safety measure, just to make sure that the network is, has some stability before they go through and launch SBTC as well. But yeah, that is on track. We'll see that about a month after the activation of Nakamoto. So again, everything is just going to be happening here within the next couple of months, and it's going to be a big, I think, remainder of the year, for Bitcoin and for Stacks.
I'm so excited. I've been around since like late 2020, early 2021, releasing NFTs and exploring DeFi with Alex and now Valar. So I know that there's a lot of us who are just chomping at the bit, waiting for this to happen. I mean, for anyone who's been around for a while, it's not one for one. Like every 10 minutes, there's a stacks block. Sometimes we've been waiting for like 50 minutes, even over an hour for some. blocks to be settled onto Bitcoin, and sometimes they happen in like 2 minutes. It's pretty wild. So just this concept of having every 5 seconds there's a new anything can be confirmed within like 5 seconds. That's so fast.
Yeah, it's a huge unlock, and yeah, I'm very excited. I think, just coming from our perspective at, Trust Machines and with Leather, like it's going to enable so many new things on the network. There's several things, that we are building in the background that really wouldn't be able to do something like this without these faster blocks. So, um, and yeah, like you said, I'm so excited to see. I know that there are a lot of people that have things in the background that are just built already, and they're just waiting for Nakamoto to go live, so that they can announce and launch their own products. So yeah, we definitely have a lot to look forward to, not just for the activation itself, but there's a lot of other announcements that people are waiting to make until Nakamoto happens. So it's going to be a very vibrant, uh, you know, few weeks post Nakamoto with a ton of different announcements happening.
Yeah. One of the many exciting things happening. How about on the political side? What's new this week?
Yeah, well, so you sent me this thing with Fair Shake. I have to be a little honest with you. I'm getting very fatigued with political news. I don't know if it's just the sentiment of this week has been kind of getting to me, or what it is. I don't know. I'm just getting kind of fatigued with it, and I'm just getting tired of it. To be honest with you, but I did see this news story that you sent to me about Fairshake and some of the stuff that they're doing, and a bit welcome because so much of what we've been talking about lately has been nonpartisan, right? With different presidential candidates, talking about Bitcoin and different just all sorts of things. But maybe I can let you talk about it because I'm so sick of politics, Sean.
It's tough, man. I used to listen to a lot of political shows, like news every night. I was so dialed in for a while, and it was around. I think it was around COVID, maybe like a little before COVID. I just kind of stopped. I really checked out, and I started just doing other things. Family took over, and I found like, is my political engagement like yielding results? Basically, like what is it doing? Is it really just entertainment, or is it like, am I becoming informed so that I could like try to make a difference with voters? I was living in California, so like what it was hard for me to understand, like almost like the return on investment, right? Like, is my time worth engaging in the political activities so much? So I th- I've been listening a little bit more to the news since Bitcoin is becoming political and newsworthy on like all sides, right? But your sentiment of just like throw your hands up and like I'm just so over it right now. I hear that from a lot of people. I So you're not alone there. Um, but yeah, real quick, the Fair Shake Political Action Committee announced a $25 million bipartisan campaign where they are supporting 18 House candidates from both sides. So I don't know if you want to read the quote from there or if you want me to take it.
Yeah, I can take it. So this is a quote, I think, from one of the representatives there. He said, "We are seeing a broad bipartisan consensus behind crypto and blockchain as a critical component of the future economy. More than 52 million Americans own crypto, which we have definitely talked about on this show before.
Mm.
With the sector responsible for tens of thousands of jobs across the country, we will continue to deploy our resources in support of leaders on both sides of the aisle and in both houses who are committed to getting things done and working with the industry to pass responsible regulation that drives innovation, creates jobs, and sustains America's global leadership." End quote.
I think it is really fascinating because I think that with a lot of issues, especially those that have been around for a while, most people have already made up their minds. Like if you look at America, take a snapshot of America, like most people, when it comes to most voting subjects, they're already decided. And then elections are based around such a small number of swing states and even swing counties. And then we dial in and figure out like what are the issues that are separating, like on the bleeding edge, right? Um, and and Bitcoin like is such a vibrant, dynamic space right now because people's like education happens, right? So people's opinions change on it. That being said, as interesting as it is right now, dynamic as it is, I really don't think it's going to be like the deciding factor in the presidential election or in the House or the Senate. Um, the way like it is um, presented to be on Twitter, for example.
Yeah, and yeah, to your point, we're in California. I'm currently in California. A lot of these decisions are essentially made made for us, right?
Yeah.
California. I don't think California has ever voted for a Republican president in my lifetime.
Yeah.
So just for anybody that maybe isn't aware of how the politics are here, that's just the way that it is in California. But I want to read off, the states that are supported here because there are some Californian, people that are on this list that are kind of pro crypto that are here in California. So we have North Carolina, we have Colorado, Nevada, uh, Alaska, New York, Illinois, Northern New York, Montana, multiple Californias on here, Arizona, Oregon, Texas, Wyoming, or Wisconsin, I guess. So again, yeah, quite a range, right? A lot of different states across different kind of, I don't know, presidential or electoral opinions or whatever. So yeah, pretty cool to see. Just that's not all concentrated to like one or two states. It's quite spread out.
Yeah, that is good to see. I'm going to pin this a tweet that we've been talking about in the nest. Speaking of things I pinned in the nest, I wanted to just shout out your presence. Forgive me if we talked about it last week, but you had a really good clip that was uh, tweeted out with through Trust Machines and Leather. Um, would you mind just giving a little synopsis about the interview that you had in Nashville and kind of just the overarching points that you were making?
Yeah, this was a lot of fun. So when we were sponsoring Leather sponsored Ord House, and we did a brunch there, and during that brunch, I was able to join on IRL Alpha, which is a normally it's a show that they host, I think weekly in SoCal, and you see a lot of folks there. Like I'll give shout outs to like Troy Kalak and BitGod and Butoshi. I think those are kind of the three kind of main hosts of that show. But they were sort of doing their own show streaming in Nashville, and I got to be part of that. I joined it with Michael, who is on the Wallet Guard team that was recently acquired by MetaMask, and we were just talking about wallets and about a lot of the stuff that's happened in the space, and um, some of the conversation shifted to open source, and that is something that I really love about Leather is that we are open source, and we're not just open source, we're very much building in the open. We are, if you go on our GitHub, you can see a lot of the activity that's happening there, a lot of the things that are being worked on in the background that maybe aren't even ready yet. There's a lot of alpha that's in the GitHub, honestly. But that is not the case for a lot of other wallets in our ecosystem. So it's a big differentiator, I think, for us, the fact that we are not just open source, but we're very much building in the open for anybody to see and for anybody to, again, kind of going back to our conversation about SIPs and BIPs, right? Anybody can submit things, anybody can submit different proposals, different feature requests, even code, right? There's people that have submitted forgetting the term, but like code requests, right, for us to potentially approve.
Mm,
Pull requests. That's the term.
nice.
So yeah, just the fact that we kind of model that Bitcoin ethos with Leather, I think is really important to talk about. and is surprisingly a differentiator among other Bitcoin wallets because not everybody is doing that.
Good point. And then I think another point that you were making is that there's so many like projects happening, right? So how do you choose? How do you differentiate what the serious projects are? Um, how do you choose which ones to partner with? And because you can't just go chasing every new thing. So what's the decision making process like?
Yeah, I mean, it is in some ways it can sometimes be too early to kind of call the winners, especially when you look at different things like Bitcoin L2s, right? At the beginning of this year, before this year, there was just you could count on one hand kind of the main kind of Bitcoin L2s that were out there. We had Lightning and Stacks and Rootstock and Liquid. And that was probably it, right? Just in terms of like the L2s that are kind of active in the space and kind of already launched and have real activity.
Yeah.
And now we have, with the start of this year, we have dozens, probably even hundreds at this point of Bitcoin L2s that are out there. And from our perspective, it's still too early to, I think, call a particular winner or winners in the space. But at the same time, there's only so many resources that we have to allocate to building on all these different Bitcoin layers. And just, there's a lot of experimentation that's happening. At the end of the day, not everything is going to survive. That's just how it works in the space. We wish everybody the best, but not everybody is going to be successful and gain traction. So, we just want to be very thoughtful and intentional about the things that we choose to support because at the end of the day, um, yeah, not everything is going to be successful, and we just want to be very thoughtful about that and not waste time. To be honest.
Yeah, I mean it's resource management. Well, I think you did a great job on the interview, so that's why I pinned that one up in the nest for anyone who has not seen it and is curious.
Thank you. Yeah, that was a lot of fun, and yeah, we definitely want to do more with IRL Alpha. We were trying to do something with them potentially for VCon that's happening tomorrow, but it's so last minute that it's hard to plan some of these things. But we'll get down there eventually and hopefully do something with them before next year in Vegas. Hopefully, we'll be able to plan something prior to that.
Nice. Yeah, you have here in the notes that Rena is speaking tomorrow at VCon.
Yeah, so shout out to Rena, COO of Trust Machine. She's going to be speaking at VCon tomorrow on a panel about Bitcoin with a couple of others. So pretty cool. Shout out Rena. Looking forward to hopefully they'll be recording that video and we can all watch it later once it gets posted. But yeah, that'll be pretty cool. Rena's down there by herself right now down in LA. So unfortunately, the rest of our team is not going to be joining her for another conference. We were all, we all met up in Nashville, but yeah, Rena's flying solo, literally and figuratively.
Nice. Man, I moved out of LA right when things started getting interesting. The couple of times that I visited, I'm just driving around and seeing like Bitcoin startup place, meet up Bitcoin over here. And thinking, all right, I was just too early. I left. There's not, out in the French countryside, there's not a lot of Bitcoin startup meetups out here, Brandon.
Yeah, I can imagine. Well, maybe if you, I don't know. I was seeing some of the your posts that you were posting with your leather swag, kind of at some fancy cafes with some delicious looking desserts, and was wondering if anybody came up to you or anybody recognized the leather the leather swag.
Yeah, not yet. I'm going to Paris tomorrow again. Wednesday, I had to run up by myself to get my son's passport, so that they didn't like throw it away and I missed the deadline. And then we impulse bought tickets to go see an event on Saturday night. So, yep, me and the whole family were getting up early tomorrow morning. We're going to take a train into Paris. So I'm going to be repping my leather water bottle or a gourd as they call it out here, and maybe my shirt. And yeah, I always try to like wear it and see if anyone recognizes. I got a strange like I had some like weird person like I was doing research for the yesterday's show on SIPs, And you know when you're sitting like in a train or on a plane, you have the person that's sitting next to you, and they're like very clearly trying to read your screen. This
Yes.
guy was doing it. And I was thinking
Drives me
like,
crazy.
I know it's so crazy, and it was so obvious that he was doing it. But then I was curious. I was like, why are you interested in what's on my screen right now? I'm just reading about SIPs.
Mm.
Like, do you know about stacks or do you know about Bitcoin? So, yeah, we'll see. But I've been having a blast. Like, I always take my merch around, try to get some leather in the wild pictures for that social media engagement.
Yeah, we were doing a lot of different kind of contests and giveaways when we were in Nashville, and that included a lot of swag giveaways. So we shipped those out, and this week we've been seeing a lot of folks posting about them, and just really cool to see people, repping their leather swag. We'll definitely be doing more of those in the future for anybody that didn't get a chance to win any. So stay tuned for that. But yeah, those leather hats especially, I love those leather hats. It's just something that you want to wear just normally, right? I think it's just a good article of clothing
It
overall.
honestly, I need that hat. That's what's missing in my life is the leather hat.
Yeah. Well, again, more chances to potentially get some leather swag coming up in the future, especially as we look towards more features of leather, as we look towards leather mobile closer towards the end of the year. There's going to be a lot of stuff coming out, so we're very excited for that. But I think that about wraps up all the news that we had today.
Yeah, it's there's always we could easily turn it into a 2-hour show if we wanted to, but those are the big ones for sure.
Yeah, I kind of like when we keep these kind of short and sweet and don't waste people's time. Again, very appreciative of everybody for joining and listening in. We are also planning on releasing these in podcast form. So we're still kind of trying to finalize some of the details there. We play copyrighted music at the beginning and end of these shows, so we can't just post them. So we need to, have a plan for that. Have maybe a different intro and outro. But yeah, looking forward to getting those posted. So if you can't join in live, you can subscribe and listen to them on your favorite podcasting app. So that's going to be pretty cool.
Soon, TM.
Yes, soon TM. We should have a mug or something that says that.
Yeah.
TM Trust Machines, right?
Yeah.
Cool. Well, again, thank you everybody so much for joining us. Have a great weekend, and we will see you next week with Leather Lounge happening every Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern, and Good for Bitcoin happening every Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern. So we will see you next week, and it'll be another good week for Bitcoin as always. And thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening. We record Good for Bitcoin live every Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time on X. Please follow us at Trust Machines Co. if you would like to listen and engage with us live. Visit us at trustmachines.co for all the latest Bitcoin news. We'll see you next week.